Hello and welcome to Brody One, I guess. My name is Justin Burch, and I am one of the hosts of 4ChecksCast, as well as a team member on Team Final Round. But seeing as what I want to do today did not fit the 4ChecksCast content cycle, Chris Smith, aka Brody One, happily volunteered to take this opportunity to dunk on David and allow me to make this content. See, David Toombs recently released a video, Stop Playing These Cards, Don't UVS Like a Casual. And it's all about why feels good cards aren't actually reals good. And it's a bad video. It has poorly structured arguments. They're not really well warranted. And I wanted to take an opportunity to not only hopefully educate David Toombs, even though he'll never listen to me, but hopefully educate the public on not just why these cards aren't exactly as bad as David Toombs makes them out in the video, but also how to hopefully structure arguments like this better in case you yourself want to ever actually make a good argument. And seeing as I am a speech and debate teacher, I figured there was no one more qualified for this content than myself. Now, before we begin, I do want two disclaimers. One, if you've not watched it already, please go watch David Toombs' video. He put a lot of work into it, and whether or not I like the content, it doesn't change the fact that it has a lot of effort and you really should take an opportunity to give it the proper views. I wouldn't be having this video if he didn't. But also to understand that what I'm going to critique here is not what David Toombs is trying to say, but how he is saying it. So I'm not putting words in his mouth. I am merely explaining how he communicates actually comes off and is actually being presented as an argument. So without further ado, let's go ahead and watch his video. And to really make sure that you watch it on your own, I am going to go ahead and set its playback speed to 1.5. So if you want the true David Toombs viewing experience, make sure you watch his video first.
The cards on the screen right now are examples of what I call feels-good cards. They make you feel warm and cozy and comfortable, like a...
David, please don't put feet pick as like the second image or anything. This isn't like critiquing the video, it's just...
blanket to a little child or their favorite stuffed animal. But as is often the case in life, growth does not occur in comfortable settings. We have to learn to let go of these things that make us feel so...
All right, so this isn't a bad attention getter. So for those of you who aren't aware, usually when you present something, you want to start with like a good attention getter. And I think equating what he's about to talk about to the comforting blanket and how sometimes you need to get less comfortable with that is a good idea. And it kind of goes alongside this thumbnail, the Stop Playing These Cards thumbnail and title, which while hopefully will be different than his thesis, which we'll get to in a moment, does set the scene of like a nice, comfortable entrance.
Nice, and we have to watch them burn. It's like Sam to Frodo. You need to drop the ring into the fire. And I know a lot of you are probably have your walls up right now. You saw a nice try, Keiko's and Weakest Hunter. You heard me say feels good, and you might have had an emotional reaction to that. You know, maybe Keiko's just helped you win a game the other day.
I want to give credit here. Trying to preempt what people are going to feel about your video and addressing it in is a very good rhetorical tactic.
At your locals, or you remember a time that Weakest Hunter won you a game by drawing 3 cards and finding what you needed, or by using the EX3 on it. So a lot of you might have your walls up right now. But I'm asking you to let down your walls. Let's talk through these feels good cards. And I think,
again, a call to action for the viewers while they're watching the video. That's good.
You might end up being on my side. And I think that letting go of feels good cards and learning to play the real good cards, even if they're feels bad per se, is a major step towards taking the leap from just winning amongst your friends and your locals to winning at major competitive events like the upcoming Louisville Regional. So let's step away from Lord of the Rings for a little bit and let's turn to the scriptures, right? The Apostle Paul.
Okay, first of all, I want to say this is funny, like quotes aren't an uncommon thing to do when you're presenting an argument, but starting with the Apostle Paul is a very pretentious, to put it nicely, way to open this, especially for the part of your audience that's not going to be religious.
I took this scripture and I translated it to UVS speak. So when I was a casual, I spake as a casual, I understood.
I'm sorry, turning a scripture into UVS speak is actually kind of funny.
As a casual, I thought as a casual. But when I became competitive, I put away feels good cards. This is the next step for a lot of players to getting better. You know, and casual players.
So again, there's something kind of problematic as he's presenting this. He keeps putting this idea of put away feels good cards. I'm going to wait for his thesis statement to really comment on this. But it does seem like he's hinting towards an abandonment of feels good cards.
Tend to flock to feels good cards faster than my kids flock to like the ice cream truck when it comes. You know, you'll find feels good cards all over the place being played, and people are very resistant towards being told to stop playing them. So I've got kind of two overarching
So he kind of doesn't really present a strong thesis here. It's kind of colored throughout his intro, but he never really says like, here's what I'm telling you to do as clearly as I would like. But I think the thesis statement we can draw based on what he says here is stop playing feels good cards. You need to put them away. You need to stop playing them. You need to become a better player, start playing reals good cards. And immediately, we're going to have to see what his arguments are throughout it, but that is a very ambitious thesis statement, given that the first three cards he presented were three cards with consistently topping results. So the idea that these cards aren't what you should be playing until you actually win is a very ambitious start.
Categories of feels good cards that I found in my studies on the subject. There might be more, and if you have another category that you'd like to suggest, feel free doing so in the comment section of this video. But the first category is a feels good card papers over feels bad elements of UniVersus. And we all know the feels bad elements of UniVersus. You've heard your buddy, or maybe you said a lot of these things at events before. I checked poorly. My rival checked like a god. They just checked straight fives and killed me. I didn't draw enough attacks. I didn't see the gas. Didn't find the orange cards. My attack got blocked. Or, ouch, taking damage is painful.
So this is immediately weird. We're going to step away from the argument analysis and kind of to the card analysis for a second. These are all things that he is correct, are reasons why someone would not, or would say they lost a game. We've all had games where we needed to check a 5, we checked a 3, and that's why we lost. We've had games where we brick on having no attacks multiple turns in a row, or when they had the right block. The weird thing about this is, if this is what he's saying is the things feels good paper over, these are causes for why you lose a game. If you are checking poorly, you probably need either less attacks in your deck, or you need ways to mitigate the bad checks you're getting. If you didn't draw enough attacks, you're probably not seeing enough cards in hand to guarantee those attacks. So we're gonna see what he kind of labels as feel good cards, but it seems like the cards that would address these problems are the cards you're gonna want in your deck.
I didn't block an attack, and then I took damage. Those last two are kind of like mini feels bad elements, but you hear the first three all the time. It's like the number one excuse for people whenever they lose. And okay, yeah, the fundamental principle behind this is loss aversion. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for his work on this subject. I think it was called prospect theory. Loss aversion was like a foundational aspect of prospect theory. It was just a part of it.
Good citation. I do like the reciting an actual person.
But basically what he found was that humans feel the emotion of losses more than they feel good when something good happens. So take, for example, would you rather have a 100% chance to gain $450 or a 50% chance to gain $1,000? I'll let you.
All right, so this is a weird example to give. It doesn't seem like he's citing this example from anywhere specifically, where we've had a study that shows that people choose one over the other. But I don't think there is immediately a clear answer of which one most people would take.
To pause the video for a moment on both of these problems and decide for yourself. But the vast majority of people, when asked this question, take the 100% chance.
He says the vast majority take the 100% chance. Now, maybe he's just not citing himself properly. If you are saying that something is done, not just might, but is done, you should be citing it properly, which he does miss.
I'd rather just have the $450, even though the 50% chance is technically, your expected value is $500. Now let's flip the question. Would you rather have a 100% chance to lose $500 or a 50% chance to lose $1,100?
I'm going to move my camera so you can see this example just for a little bit. So again, it's kind of just the same idea. Let's see what he ends up saying here.
When asked this way, most people say, all right, I want to gamble now. I don't want to lose money. So I want a chance at not losing money.
Again, do most people say that? Either way, you're losing money one way or the other. If you're telling me people are doing something, I need the evidence of that, which you're not presenting. You're kind of just making this unwarranted claim that people do this. You're saying it's based on the principle of loss aversion, which I can kind of theoretically get, but loss aversion isn't a universally applicable concept, and both of these are losses. Do people perceive the $500 as a guaranteed loss and thus view it worse than the possibility to not lose any money? If he had a thing for this, it needs to be cited.
And once again, the expected value here is negative $550. So both times, humans are picking what a rational machine would not pick. ChatGPT.
Okay, this isn't true. This is a bad... If this is his argument, this is a bad analogy. He's saying that a computer will pick the 450...
BT would not be picking these, but humans would do.
And
that's because we have loss aversion. We really don't like that feeling of losses. Here, we just want the sure thing. We don't want it to feel like we lost that $450. Here, we don't want to feel that losing $500 is all gamble.
And here he's positing that the computer would take the 1100 one because the EV is an average of... or would take the $500 one because the EV on average here would be $500 loss versus $550 loss. I get that. That's very gambler minded, which David loves gambling. But I don't really. That's not really going to be a universally applicable concept. There's a little bit of a false equivalence going on. He's equating this to kind of the way we play card games. So we're going to play the cards that feel better for us or make us feel like we're losing the game less than the cards that might be higher risk or lower risk, but don't necessarily feel as good, but might be in practice better. The problem with this analogy is that this isn't these don't always work in the same way. Let me give an example. Let's say that you lose the game if you lose $500. Which of these would you now take? Well, you know the 100% chance to lose 500 you would never take at that point. Yes, the negative EV in theory is worse to take the bottom one, but in practice, since the game automatically loses when you lose 500, you would rather take the higher risk one, even though on average it's going to perform worse. And in this instance, there's a binary win and lose condition for our game, which is you get dropped down to 0 life. So sometimes you might take the riskier option, even though you know that on average it performs worse, because the base threshold for the less risky option to perform is never going to be enough to win the game. So I automatically think this analogy doesn't really work at its core principle.
And I'll keep gambling and gambling and gambling to make my money back. Okay, gains and losses are not treated the same in our brains. We focus way more on losses. So anything that helps us not feel these feelings is good.
Also, he does try to provide this analogy, but doesn't actually tie it directly into the card games, which if you are presenting an analogy, you need to link it back to your core concept.
Our brain perceives it as good, even if it's not real good. So let's take each of these one at a time, and I'll give you 3 examples of cards that fit these categories, but 3 feels good cards. But just know that for every feels good card I show here, there's like 20 more that I could find as examples. It's really not very difficult to find all these feels good cards on UVS Ultra. The ones that I'm going to be putting here are ones that I see played at a high rate. So I checked poorly. City Rampage, right? Everybody loves to slam City Rampage in. Now I can play all these 5 diff attacks, and I feel better about it. When I check a 3, I actually check a 5. When I check a 5, I check a 7. And so City Rampage gets just slammed into decks that it has no business being in. Like, I think most 6-handers should not be playing City Rampage. 7-handers maybe, but a lot of 6-handers, they're just playing City Rampage at such a high rate. Life of Danger. After you check it 2 or less, that check is +1. I see people putting Life of Danger into decks where they have 4 2 checks. Okay, let's think about this for a second. 1, what are the odds you're going to actually check it 2? I don't know. It's going to happen like 1 in 5 games. And then when it does happen, 2, what are the odds you actually built a Life of Danger? And it helped you out. And then 3, what are the odds that even if you use the Life of Danger, that it actually changed anything about the game?
Okay, so immediately there's a fallacy that's kind of existing here on this premise. David is not examining the cost of these cards when looking at the benefit. He's using Life of Danger here as an example, and I think that is a fair example. Life of Danger is a card that is only situationally useful. But there are very few 0 diffs that exist that are universally applicable. Cards like Requesting Assistance Release, these historically incredibly powerful ones, don't really exist in our format anymore. If you're comparing this to, say, Easily Excited, which has also rotated, but these 2 were legal at the same time for longer, yeah, you might prioritize the ability to mitigate a bad check over the ability to, say, get 1 speed at one point. Because if your opponent's blocking a move anyways, maybe that 1 speed wasn't going to matter. Yes, the 0 diffs are not meant to be universally applicable. They are situational, but there are times where this situation could be incredibly useful. If you're a pony deck that's trying to kill on 4 foundations, there is a big difference between checking 2 3s, which means you can commit the 4 foundations, and checking a 2 and a 3, where you now have to commit your face as well. If you are playing a pony character, a pony style character that's really trying to play aggro on turn 2, and you say you're wanting to run Lethal Slash in that deck because that's an incredibly powerful card for Pony, Life of Danger immediately becomes a strong considering choice.
That it actually mattered that you got that bonus to your check. I'm not saying that these cards never have spots. Life of Danger, obviously, in Air Nick Reagan, where he's playing 12 2-checks, has a spot. City Rampage, when I made top cuts in St. Louis, I got top 8 with Amajiki. I was playing a City Rampage deck. But it made sense for the deck in the 7-hander that I was playing. But I see casuals I'm playing a 2-check? Oh, yeah, Life of Danger goes in.
Okay, so we are kind of positing something that is different than the thesis statement. In the thesis statements, we told people to stop playing these cards. Now he's saying there are times where it's useful to play these cards, but he's really rushing these use cases. Like, if you're going to do this, if you want to say, look, these cards are situational, you need to think about the situations, really give us an example. He kind of brings up the Tokoyami one, Amajiki one, Slow down and really present us why Amajiki using City Rampage was viable and what makes it really different than, say, a 6-hand size aggro deck.
And it's like, you would do so much better at having a foundation that's actually going to do something meaningful. Or Unfazed, for example. After this is blocked, which is another feels bad moment. So in 2 ways, Unfazed is helping your feels badness turn into good. After this attack's blocked, your checks to play cards get +1 this turn. So we love these because our brains are hardwired to love these. Because it feels bad to check poorly. And so saving up.
Hold on, he didn't even explain why Unfazed is a bad card. Now, there are arguments that people just eat Unfazed, take the damage, and then they can block everything else, and that's a reason why Unfazed is debatable. This was an argument that I know, like, Sam made when he was running Godzilla about this. But if you're going to be presenting these cards, you're trying to take cards people really like and tell us why they're not actually that good. I need to really hear those arguments, and I just didn't with Unfazed.
Us from that negative emotion matters to our brains. But if we would let these cards go a lot of the times and play something better, we would be better off for it. All right, my rival checked like a god. Airy Smiles. Breaker 3, Untimely Counterattack, Frantic Rescue. So Airy Smiles, high block, you block with it, your rival has to play a non-attack card as their next form or pass. Well, this is so situational. A lot of times your rival is done attacking anyway, and so it didn't matter. A lot of times you can't block high. You know, maybe they play a string of lows or you're half blocking in order to get your Airy Smiles off. You're also flipping a foundation. Is it actually, and let's say when it works, is it actually work? Is it actually saving you? It's probably saving you like 20% of the time. The other 80% of the time, they just...
Okay, this is a very confusing point he's making. Yes, it is situational. That is a true statement because, yeah, your opponent may have been done attacking. But the point of Airy Smiles is to be a mitigating risk card in terms of stopping your opponent's aggro. If your opponent wasn't done attacking you, now they have to weigh the option of a permanent Breaker 1 or not, and they may have to stop because of that. That has clear value as a card, especially as a hand trap, because if your opponent knows this card is in your deck, unlike a card that's in your stage that they can play around, they now have to really think about, can I play through an Airy Smiles or not? Do I need to be holding a Coin Must test? Do I need to be holding a Showdown for this? That is putting decisions on your opponent that can increase their chance of making a mistake.
just say, all right, I'll play this foundation and then I'm going to kill you anyway. You know, your Airy Smiles meant nothing.
Play this foundation, I'm going to kill you anyway. Yes, they might have enough foundations to make that check, but there's a very good chance they don't, especially on turn 2 or turn 3, where these actions are their most important.
But it felt good to play. You know, it felt good. Timely Counterattack, Breaker 3. You know, people love saying Breaker 3. They say Breaker 3 and feel so smug. But Timely Counterattack's not good as an attack. It's almost like a 3-check action. You know, it's like, it's not very powerful on its own. It's purely, decks that play it are...
A 2 low for 3 damage is a fine card if it's a 3 diff in this specific instance. And it also, by the way, if you have less health, is a 3 low for 4, which is good 3 diff stats, and a 4 low for 5 if you have fewer foundations as well is really good. So it situationally gets better. This is kind of a weird take in my opinion. Breaker 3 can be very strong. It can be a turn ender. You might decide, if you're looking for a spam attack that just doesn't do much on offense but has a really powerful defensive ability, you might decide to play this, and that's a totally defensible option.
Purely playing it for the breaker, and in which case I'd rather play something with like a similar ability, like a Showdown, for example, that checks a 4 instead of checking a 3. And Showdown actually also cancels actions, which is really meaningful. Okay, Frantic Rescue, after you take damage, you get another feels bad moment. So double feels good card here. After you take damage, flip it, your rival's attacks get +1 difficulty this turn. Okay, number 1, you had to take damage to do it. Number 2, your rival might just be done playing attacks anyway, and you're just helping them play the game correctly.
Again, like, mitigate. This is a card that tries to tell your opponent to stop attacking you. If you're running a DR deck, this card has a lot of value. And I need to hear him try to explain to me these situations where these cards are useful. If he's trying not to tell me, or he's trying to say he's not just trying to tell me not to play these cards.
A lot of UniVersus, you win games when you backswing people. How do you backswing? Well, first, they overcommit to their attack string that doesn't work out. Frantic Rescue, if you're using like one of these 3 cards and then they actually decide not to commit out and then they build out.
Wait, can I hear that again?
Frantic Rescue, backswing people. Might just be done playing attacks anyway, and you're just helping them play the game correctly. A lot of UniVersus, you win games when you backswing people. How do you backswing? Well, first, they overcommit to their attack string that doesn't work out.
He just explained why Frantic Rescue is a good card, because a lot of people, if you flip a Frantic Rescue on them, will still try to play another attack or 2 and commit out a bit. A lot of people don't go, oh, my turn's immediately over, I'm going to build, especially if they don't have a lot of gray in hand. And so this card can increase your ability to have a strong backswing turn.
Frantic Rescue, if you're using like one of these 3 cards and then they actually decide not to commit out and then they build out, then you can't backswing them appropriately like you might have been able to do if you had baited them.
Yes, if they have enough foundations to properly do it, and you play this on the first attack. By the way, you can just choose to Frantic Rescue on a later attack where building out is still difficult for them and they've still committed resources, but it decreases the chance you die.
Into playing more attacks. A lot of people, like with the Breaker 3, they'll do that as very first time they can, and then it has a 3 block mod, so they'll like commit their resources out just to say Breaker 3, and then they'll get killed anyway. Frantic Rescue will get killed anyway. By the way, it checks a 4.
Wait, but that means it's not that these are feels good or not cards, it means people are playing them poorly. Which, yeah, people will play a card poorly, but the correct way to play these cards are still exceptionally powerful.
I really don't like to be playing 4-check foundations. Personally, I like to limit the number of those. Okay, I just didn't draw enough attacks.
And I guess we're not presenting any way
latent skill comes to mind for me. Flip, discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. You're not increasing your hand size. 2, there's no guarantee of what you're going to be drawing. 3, if it gets canceled, game over. You just lost 2 cards in hand. Or let's think about like Unrelenting Advance. After this is blocked, a feels bad moment. Mill cards until you mill an attack, add the milled attack to your hand. But you just clogged your card pool. And a 2-5 is not doing much. It's not advancing the game state, putting pressure on your rival enough. So all you're doing is clogging your card pool until you get another thing. Like, in effect, it's like a pseudo discard 1 ability, but you had to clog your card pool to do it. Really, really don't like. It's like the latest, what was it? We had it in the past. It was in the Endeavor deck. I can't remember it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. Jaw Titan's Bite.
Ignited
3 high
Arrows
4,
is
discard a
the
card,
card
get a
he's talking about, by the way.
Jaw Titan's Bite. So we are not increasing our hand size. There's not really another meaningful ability here. Deadlock's done 2. Everything else gets a damage. Those are fine. They're not like game-winning abilities, and then you go find another Jaw Titan's Bite. And it's conditional whether even you have more Jaw Titan's Bite in your discard pile. And then you're just getting another kind of bad attack, and you're just clogging your card pool while doing it. Like in Porco, Jaw Titan's Bite makes sense. All of these cards have their time and place because Porco just wants to clog his card pool. But in the vast majority of decks that I see running Jaw Titan's Bite, I am not a fan. Okay, my attack got blocked.
Okay, we barely talked about latent skill, so let's talk about these 3. So let's talk about math for a second. If your opponent just had a swing on you where you had to build like completely block, so you had no cards left in hand, a very common state to be in, and you draw a fresh hand of 6. If you have a deck that is 33% attacks, which would be 20 in a 60 card deck, which is a very high percentage of attacks, mind you, you are on average going to find 2 attacks. 2 attacks is usually not going to kill anyone. So cards that can be played that help you find more attacks are really good cards. And the ones that he just named here, at least I think the first 2, I think Unrelenting Advance is maybe too low statted, but the first 2 are really good. Latent Skill, yes, you discard 2 to draw 2, but discarding 2 foundations that don't really matter to draw 2 attacks can be tremendous value. And that ignores the fact that if you have it on defense, you can discard 2 cards that are not the block you need to potentially find the block you need. This is a really powerful card to the point where people have played facsimiles of it in decks like Ymir with Meeting Hanji. And yes, Meeting Hanji doesn't discard for cost, which means it can plus you, but that's relatively situational. People still often play it just for the cycle because cycling can be really powerful. Bird 2 was arguably bannable because of his cycle ability. Jaw Titan's Bite is an incredibly strong card. It is a variation, not quite as good, but a variation on Beast Summoning, a card that was so good that people were arguing that it might have to get hit when it was abused in Pony. The ability to turn any foundation into your hand into a copy of Jaw Titan's Bite, if you do a lot of printed damage and speed on face, has very clear and understandable value. And David has just written it off as, oh, unless it's in like 1 or 2 specific decks, it's a bad card, which just doesn't make sense.
Cool, but in the vast majority of decks that I see running Jaw Titan's Bite, I am not a fan. Okay, my attack got blocked. All right, well, full Cowling Impact says, hey, when it's blocked, your rival destroys a foundation. Satchel Toss, now they commit 2 foundations. This is my chance. Now you get to clear it from your card pool. These are all little abilities that make us feel nice, but one, we're putting our rival in control on whether or not these abilities happen, and they just make us feel happy when our attack is blocked.
Okay, so I think one thing that confuses me a little bit about his argument here, and I want to take a little step back and focus again on the argument analysis part, is he has created a bit of a false dichotomy here. He is positing that these cards force your opponent to make a decision where they can pick the best decision for them. But that always exists in UniVersus. It is always the case in UniVersus that your opponent can either choose to block or not block an attack. They can either choose to eat the damage or stop the damage. And there are times where one is correct and times where the other is correct. What these do can weigh the options. Now, I'm not going to talk about full Cowling Impact because I actually don't think that card is that good because I think it's a little too low statted. But Alchemical Satchel Toss is a very interesting one here. It has powerful 2, which means you can make it a pretty high damage threatening move. And you can tell the opponent, hey, you either have to block this and at minimum commit 2, which means my later attack might kill you, or eat a ton of damage. Versus if it didn't have that ability, if you were just playing like a 3 low 5 powerful 2 with some other effect, they now have to ask themselves, am I going to eat the damage, or can I just block this and then not really expend any resources besides a card in hand? And this is my chances maybe the worst one on this list for him to provide. Because, yeah, if your first attack, if you make it a high threat attack, telling your opponent that if they completely block it, I get to clear it from the card pool and keep attacking freely, or they have to choose to eat it, especially when I'm giving it 2 additional speed on a spam ability, can be an incredibly powerful ability. And I think just writing it off as feels good is a fundamental misunderstanding of how people play the game.
We're putting our rival in control on whether or not these abilities happen, and they just make us feel happy when our attack is blocked. But we don't want our attacks to get blocked. Throws are like inherently feel-good cards. All throws are. You see beginners and casuals playing throws at a much heavier rate than competitive players typically, because it feels good. It's like, hey, I got half damage in even if you block. If I just play all throws, I'll always be able to get damage in. Ouch, taking damage is painful. We don't like...
Okay, so we kind of skipped over throws one really interesting, which is funny because I think it's the best one he provides. Throws do tend to get overused by newbie players. They very still clearly have value. We were just on the podcast where an all throws grog deck, because it could put so much damage on, could do some serious damage, especially to 7-handers. But even not all throw decks, like decks that run 1 or 2 throws to guarantee momentum or guarantee a when damage dealt do X effect, are clearly valuable.
Like that. Time for battle. Hey, we get to sacrifice 1, you commit 1. Titanic combat. I get to build 1 now that I took damage. Smiling Titan. Hey, you have to attack my Smiling Titan instead of attacking me. But now I'm playing this 7 difficulty attack that's understated at a 6 high 6, and it takes me an extra turn to be able to use the ability. And then even when I do use the ability, who says the right answer wasn't just to attack the Smiling Titan and get free momentum for killing a backup anyway?
Okay, he just kind of rushed through it and complained. I guess he really hates Smiling Titan, which is fair because I play her. But it's kind of a weird... He doesn't actually really properly explain why these cards are not progressing your advantage. He just says taking damage sucks. But playing cards that when you take damage provide you with a valuable resource have very clear strategy behind them. One thing that Yu-Gi-Oh players know that I think UniVersus players, especially newer ones, can sometimes struggle with is the concept that your life points are a resource. Because remember, you only need 1 life point to win the game. If you have more than 1 life point, it doesn't matter. 2 life points, 3 life points, you don't win the game more. You win as long as you keep 1. So cards that say, I will eat this damage, but by eating this damage, I will do X, Y, Z, can clearly have value. Smiling Titan is an even weirder one for him to group with those, because not only is it a completely different effect, but a card that says that your first attack is guaranteed not to damage me, so you don't get to start dealing damage to me until you put at least 1 in your pool, till you commit at least 2 into 2 attacks, has some very clear value in a lot of control decks. There have been Caduceus decks that use it well. There have been even Smiling Titan decks that have used it decently well.
That's category 1. A feels good card papers over feels bad elements of UniVersus, right? We're taking these times in the game where normally we would feel terrible, and the feels good card makes us feel not so terrible. And humans value getting out of pain more than they...
So he's creating a bad analogy here. He's mirroring language here. He's saying feels good versus feels bad. But the things that he's saying are feels bad are actually bad things. Checking poorly is a thing that actually loses you games. Not drawing enough attacks are things that actually can lose you the game. These aren't feels bad instances. These are real bad instances. And playing cards that mitigate those real bad instances have value.
They do value something good happening. Okay, category 2 of a feels good card. A feels good card has abilities that work in your mind more often than they work during games.
Okay, I don't think this is an inherently bad argument. I think players, and he's going to mention it in a little bit, do get into Magic Christmas Land a lot.
This one's a little bit different. This one's more of a deck building category, because the first category was, okay, these are helping elements of my actual gameplay, feel better. And now this is, well, when you're deck building, you're imagining all of the possibilities of these cards. And then when you actually sit down and play, it's not as good. Now, this category is not nearly as sinister as category 1, because typically after some play testing, these will be the cards that you cut, because they're not consistent enough. So often in UniVersus, when you sit down to play, you're battling against somebody and you both have a different game plan. And your goal is to overpower their game plan with your game plan. Best way to do that is to make your game plan as consistent and powerful as possible. Inconsistent cards need to be cut. Unless we have a way we're doing something with our character, or our cards are synergizing in a way that turn these inconsistent cards into ultra consistent cards. But most of the time, these cards are too inconsistent. They're working in your mind, but they're not actually working in the
Okay, people understood the point already. This sort of rambling will lose your audience.
game, and they need to get cut. And good play testing, you'll end up cutting these cards. So it's not as sinister as the category number 1. So what do I mean by this? Like, an ability is conditional or situational. An ability allows your rival to be in control, and maybe not your rival in control, but maybe fate is in control.
I'm not going to talk about
Jesus take the wheel, or maybe it's just detached from reality. In Discord, I see this. I see these cards referred to as like magical Christmas land cards, or it just doesn't change anything. Sometimes there's abilities that they feel good to press the button, and absolutely nothing happens because of it. Okay, this comes from our unrealistic optimism, and there have been tons and tons of studies done on this. Oh, I meant to change the image. This was like a badly done AI image here.
Chat, he used AI. Get him.
Meant to change it to something else. Oh, well, we'll have to deal with their deformed hands of these college graduates. Okay, but there's been lots of studies done on this, right? Like when people first get married, they ask them, hey, what are the odds you'll get divorced? And people are like, oh, 0%, less than 10%. What are the odds that you'll become an alcoholic compared to your peers when you're graduating college? Oh, yeah, I have a much lower chance of that. Or what are the odds that you'll get into a car crash? Or people are...
I'm sorry. This is crazy for a UniVersus video. We're like, oh man, people are too optimistic in the game. It's like when people say they're not getting divorced or not going to become a raging alcoholic. Dave, is everything going all right, bud?
Tend to underestimate the odds of bad things and overestimate the odds of good things. And we bring this with us to UniVersus. Again, it's normal. It's just our brains doing that to us. But we have to recognize that our brains are doing this. And so it can feel like, turning into the skid on a car whenever you hit the ice or something. Okay, let's take these one at a time. Conditional. Earthbreaker, if your rival has more foundations than you, draw a card. Levi's Retribution, if your rival has 10 or less health, his attack is 4 speed. Dangerous Combatant, if your rival has more foundations committed than ready, draw 1 card.
Okay, I'm going to let present his argument in a minute, but immediately calling Earthbreaker a feels good, not reals good card when it is a stun 2, 3 low for 5 that has the potential to draw you a card and the potential to pop a foundation, and gives you a card pool effect where people draw cards gives additional damage is absolutely insane.
The key word here is if. And Levi's Retribution has it 3 times. If. I hate that word. I want my card to play its ability 100% of the time. Earthbreaker is actually double feels good.
You hear it here first, folks. David Toombs thinks coordinated effort's a bad card because it says if on it, because he hates all cards that say if.
Because then the response after this attack deals damage, destroy 1 rival foundation. Well, that's putting your rival in control. We'll get to that in just a little bit. So 2 feels good abilities on Earthbreaker. The amount of times I see someone play an Earthbreaker and then they don't actually get the draw and then I block it and they don't even get to destroy, it's like, yeah, you wasted your time with that card.
Okay, I guess we're not just going to touch on those cards. So let me go and rewind and touch a little bit more on what he said, because he just kind of wrote off Earthbreaker as just a generically bad card, which is insane. Stun 2 provides you immediate value. 5 diff stun 2 is a solid ability. 3 low for 5. Those are not bad stats. And low is the best zone for a thing to be on. It has a +1 high block. These are all good things that just got completely glossed over by him. It's card pool effect. If you're drawing every attack, which a lot of decks are doing this that's giving you additional damage on every single attack. And then the 2 if abilities turn this card from a good card to an amazing card. Yes, you will not always draw a card, but if you're going second, where you're usually behind on the build, this is a great way to put you back in the race, in a position where you are normally going to be disadvantaged. The if this deals damage, destroy 1 rival foundation, that tells the opponent that they have to waste a block on this attack that is probably not going to kill them because it doesn't have powerful or anything like that. Going to make it easier for us to push a more powerful attack through later. And if they choose to eat it, then I can build out or play other debuilding attacks and put them permanently behind in the relative build. If effects are usually really good if they take a good card into an amazing card.
Breaker, and then they don't actually get the draw, and then I block it, and they don't even get to destroy. It's like, yeah, you wasted your time with that card. Putting your rival in control. Okay, think of Vile Seizing as like the poster child for this. Your rival makes a check against a 7. If they fail, draw 1 card, and this attack gets 2 damage. Well, your rival is always going to make the decision that is worse for you. If they're not going to block your Vile Seizing, they might as well just commit 2. And now it's effectively like they half blocked it because you get 2 less damage, and they stopped you from drawing a card. A lot of people a lot of very good players will be committing for that Vile Seizing effect. And if they choose not to commit, it's probably because it doesn't change the fact that they're just going to block the Vile Seizing.
Okay, Vile Seizing has deadlock -2 on all your checks, or in other words, +2 speed on all, or your rival checks. In other words, +2 speed on all your attacks. That's really good, and there have been a lot of times where that's been competitively viable. A +1 high block breaker 1 is really good. Now, I do think Vile Seizing can be a little overrated sometimes for different reasons. I think if your character isn't looking to find additional card draw, then the deadlock is probably not enough on its own. But this card is says that it is either stun 1 to 2 on a 4 diff, or a 3 high 6 that draws you a card with breaker 1 that also gives the rival -2 to all of their checks for the rest of the turn if you're in deadlock. What that means is in either position, this card is usually going to be a pretty solid card. Yes, your opponent can choose the better of the 2 options, but both these options are still usually pretty bad for the opponent.
and take 0 damage from it. So what did it matter that you got 2 damage? Strange energies, they're just going to commit out for it when they need it. Kenny Ackerman.
They're just going to come out when they need it. Yes, but you just did a defensive, almost always stun 2, sometimes stun 4, and in a worst case, at least a stun 1. Those are all really good. And that's ignoring the fact that this can also do fun, weird things like mess with people's check hacking and things like that.
After you deal damage, your rival either loses 3 health or they discard a card. Well, they're always going to pick the one that you don't want them to pick.
Okay, I do agree with Kenny, but that's because I think Kenny's just a bad card. I do want to, again, bring up coordinated effort. By the criteria he's providing right here, which he's providing no additional criteria that would counteract it, coordinated effort would be viewed as a feels-good card for him. It's totally in control of the rival and conditional. Your rival can choose not to block an attack, and thus you don't get the response on coordinated effort. For all of these cards, yes, your opponent can choose the one that is less harmful to them, but both sides of the effect are harmful, which makes it a viable card. It may not go in every deck, but it's viable.
After you deal damage, your rival either loses 3 health or they discard a card. Well, they're always going to pick the one that you don't want them to pick. Also, any attack that says after this attack deals damage. Well, who's in control of dealing damage? A lot of the time, your rival has some say in that. There's a dance that happens when you play UniVersus. Now, sometimes, maybe your rival has no cards in hand or they're completely committed out. But most of the time, your rival has some...
Again, 2 of these are weird examples because I don't think I've ever seen people say Race to the Rescue or Rapid Transformation are that crazy of cards. So I don't know why we're really calling them feels-good cards. Mint of Despair, I think, is interesting here. But yeah, if you're playing a life gain character, a 4 diff 5 high for 6 is almost walk the dog stats. And the fact that it tells your opponent that they can't block other high blocks because if they let this poke, you get to play a non-progressive attack and string out way harder, has a ton of value.
Some say in which attacks they block. And so abilities like Mist of Despair, after this attack deals damage, your next card try to play ignores progressive difficulty. Well, your rival gets to turn off that ability if they want to. Like Rapid Transformation I actually really like, but I like it for the cycle lock, not for the response.
Wait. I thought he said he hates the word if. He likes the cycle lock ability, the ability that requires you to be on pass a bunch of turns. That's the most feels good part of this card. Okay.
Okay, or you're putting Fate in control. Maybe even worse than your rival. Punisher's Beam, mill 3, add 1 ranged or weapon card, mill this way to your momentum. A lot of times you play Punisher's Beam and you hit nothing. And then you also have a feels good enhance. If this attack deals damage, destroy 1 rival foundation. Well, you're putting your rival in control of that. Beast Titan's Call. We saw when I played Justin the other day for like Smiling Titan versus Reiner money match. He would have beat me in the last game, but he needed his Beast Titan's Call to mill a certain card that would become a backup that would then burn me for 2 health. But he missed it because it's inconsistent, because Fate was in control.
Okay, sorry, gonna name another logical fallacy. This is what we call hasty generalization. AC generalization is where you use one anecdotal example as a way to prove something that is a much larger point. In this situation, I wasn't playing Beast Titan's Call for its RNG-oriented effect. I was playing it because it's a 6 lows 8, which is fine stats. It's an 8 diff, which I was playing Smiling Titan to give it a good boost to. That also had EX3 because the deck lacks a momentum out. It also happens that when it does connect, I have the potential to have some high roll abilities apply, but even in the low rolls, it's very useful.
Father Sin, after you play this mill 4, if you mill 2 attacks this way, draw 1 card. Well, sometimes you'll draw, sometimes you won't.
I do think Father Sin's not a very good card, but that's more to do with the fact that we have a lot of draw 1 cards. And it has a +4 mid block, which means playing it on defense to try to draw more on defense is a really hard ask.
When we see these cards, we always imagine them happening. Oh, Punisher's Beam. Yeah, this gives me momentum. Well, 67% of the time it does. Or Beast Titan's Call. Yeah, this builds me backups. Maybe. You can only hope. And then which one? Which one? Who knows? It's based on whatever you mill. Or these cards are magical Christmas land, just detached from reality entirely. I picked some recent ones for this. Aerial Kikosho. This one's not even out yet. It's coming out in the Street Fighter decks, but I already see so many people excited, thinking that this is like game-breaking and game-changing. Drive 1, add this card to your card pool. After you completely blocked attack resolves, try to play this attack from your card pool. Gets -2 difficulty and +2 speed. So people are like, oh, it's like a reversal coming back into UniVersus. I can play this attack on my opponent's turn. And now if I'm like playing this in Jamie or something, I can play it and then I can get an extra drink counter because now I can use my once per turn ability on my rival's turn too. Or when I'm playing it, my rival will block and then I'll use it. It's like a 4 difficulty 6i7.
Okay, this is not normally what people refer to when they say Magic Christmas Land. Normally when we talk about Magic Christmas Land, we're talking about things like the Tiger Infinite Loop. For those of you unaware, Tiger had an infinite loop where if he had, I think it was All Might's Mentorship and 2 of Bert for the Bert and Ernie combo, or it might be Ernie, the one that unflipped a card, and he had Award the Victor in his discard pile. He could infinitely play attacks because he would like poke, it would stack, he would draw off the All Might's mentorship cycle, and he would draw because of Tiger. He could play it again. I think along the way there was a way to unflip Award the Victor. And like normally we talk about Magic Crystal Lane, we're talking about these 3 or 4 card combos that do that thing. In the case of Aerial Kikosho, this is just saying in a situation where you completely block, this provides you additional value as a reversal. Now we can argue if that's a good enough ability because it is normally a 6 diff and it is a vanilla attack otherwise. But that isn't normally what people mean when they say Magic Christmas Land. Also, I don't know why Survey Core is on here. Survey Core is a card people have laughed at for being a terrible UR.
You know, and it sounds so wonderful until you start playing the game, because I have played with Kikosho quite a bit already, and I find myself cutting it. It's like the first attack cut so often, because it ends up being, well, I have to completely block something, so I have to hold a secondary card that full blocks something and then play this, and then it has to be the right timing to where playing the attack after the block is the optimal choice and not holding back Kikosho to block something else in the future. And then if you draw into it and you only draw it, then you're not drawing other attacks that would be better as leadoffs. Even if your rival does block an attack, is it the right time for Kikosho? Like if you have a Tri-Gravity in hand, maybe you would much rather play Tri-Gravity in your sequencing, but now that they completely block, maybe they're never going to block again in that turn, and so it's now or never for Kikosho, and now you have 2 attacks that really want to be played going at war against each other in your sequencing. It sounds great when you're putting it in the deck, because it's always working in your mind. It's not working in practice. Ackerman's Team Up. This gets +2 damage for each card clear from a card pool. Oh, if I'm playing like a Mikasa 1, this is going to get like +6 damage, you know, and now it's like a 4 mid 9, and a 4 mid 9 is really good stats on a 4 diff. I love this. And then you put it into the deck, and then you realize that you're clearing 3 cards in a turn, maybe once per game, and then even then, did Ackerman's matter? It's a terrible lead-off attack.
Okay, this is a really weird example to use Mikasa specifically, because Mikasa isn't winning the game unless she's clearing a lot of cards. You're not like usually winning the game because you poke once or twice every turn. You are needing damage on your all-in turn, and you're needing to kill people on your all-in turn. And Ackerman's Team Up is a great all-in card. This would be like saying Luna Tijeras is a bad card, which I would think is a crazy take as well.
You know, Survey Corpse, like after I block, I get to ready it. Okay, well, in your mind, you're always blocking 3 or 4 times. What about reality? I'm sorry, I've got my lawn. You might hear the lawn work going on outside right now. Okay, or it has an ability that just doesn't change anything. Like Besiege. This attack can only be blocked by cards with a 3 block mod or greater. Well, if your rival has one in their hand anyway, then this literally changed nothing.
Okay, I hate that he says this doesn't change anything. By the way, if you want another example of this doesn't change anything, that is a historically incredibly powerful card. And it's very similar to the Trying to Reach Aaron. He's going to bring him in just a second. Destined for Mainstream Success is a doesn't change anything card by this definition, because if you name attack and you look at the top, it's a foundation, it's not an attack, you didn't actually do anything, but you got information and you potentially cleared an attack off the top, so you know the next check's going to be a 5. That is clear value. In the case of Besiege, which is a really weird one for him to be saying this for, what you've done is you've put your opponent in a position where they have to hold a +3 block or risk facing an unblockable attack. If you're playing a character like I don't know if he has fire, but if Bowie, say, had fire, where you can put massive stats on a single move and your opponent doesn't hold a +3 block when they know you have Besiege, you might win the game on the spot. That sort of control on your opponent has clear value, especially on something as cheap as a 3 diff attack.
Other than you feeling good when you press the button. Lust for Battle. You don't get to pick when this goes off a lot of the times when you randomly mill it off your deck, so it's a little bit about fate and control. You do get to if you destroy it from your stage, but then even then, when you give your rival's next check, -1, your rival is now in control.
Could you imagine saying firepower decks are RNG based and thus aren't good when they were like multi-time tournament top winning? Lust for Battle, yes, in a deck that's not milling a ton, probably doesn't have a ton of value, but in a deck that's milling a ton, over time that will apply. It is either +1 speed or a pseudo breaker 1. That for a free ability on a spam just by milling it can have a lot of value in a ton of decks. I'm sorry, I know I'm repeating myself, these have a lot of value in a ton of decks, but he's not presenting these use cases.
Roll of like when they're going to check. Perhaps they just never check again that turn and they didn't intend to anyway. And now your Lust for Battle did nothing. Perhaps they just waste it on their next block that they were planning to fail anyway, and then it means nothing for when they actually do block. Trying to Reach Aaron is do nothing effects in 2 ways. It's pretty impressive. First form, look at the top card of your deck. How often is first form, look at the top card of your deck, going to change the first card you play?
It can change it a lot. If you're on turn 2 and you see a 3 on top of your deck and you know you can't play a 3, you probably... and you know you can't check a 3 without putting yourself behind, you probably don't play an attack, you probably build out. There have been plenty of characters that have been bannably good because of how many times they could look at the top of their deck.
Most of the time, you're just going to play the first card you're going to play anyway.
Okay.
even if you know you're going to check poorly on it. It's like, well, it just makes sense still. Enhance, commit, name a card type, reveal the top card of your deck. If the revealed card matches the name type, add it to your hand. So it's another way of like peeking the top and then sometimes drawing it, but a lot of times it's just doing nothing.
It's not doing nothing. Giving yourself information is something.
Changing nothing about the outcome of the game. And a 2 difficulty foundation that checks a 4 needs to be changing the outcome of games on a consistent basis. Don't get me wrong. Look, Besiege is good in a lot of decks. 3 difficulty, 3 mid, 4. That's just good stats right there.
So I think let's go and broaden out because we're getting to his last point here. One of the problems David presents here is a fundamental misunderstanding of the game. David is arguing that conditional abilities do not matter, that your cards need to be at 100% of their potential 100% of the time. And if they're ever less good, if there's ever a situation where they're not useful, they are immediately bad. They immediately feels good, not reals good. Examples he gave like Besiege. Well, this card's not good if they have a +3 mid block already. Yes, but what about situations where they didn't draw a +3 mid block, or only drew a +3 high or low block, or didn't draw any +3 block, and now it's unblockable? The fact that you're putting your opponent in a position where they have to be thinking about holding a +3 block has value. Earlier with Earthbreaker, what they're always just going to block and not deal damage and have less foundations. You're not going to draw a card. Yeah, but it's a fine card even in that situation. And when they don't have those things, it becomes an incredibly useful card. There are so many instances where these cards have value or have peak value, but even their floor values are still very good.
But a lot of times that blitz ability doesn't matter and it doesn't change anything. They were going to block with the 3 block mod anyway. But it feels nice, and then people are like, oh, it's like pseudo 6 speed, All right, so there it was. A feels good card has abilities that work in your mind more often than they work during games. So those are my 2 categories of feels good cards, and the examples that I've shown are far from all of them. Again, I could find hundreds of feels good cards and put them in here. I just wanted to put some higher played ones. But feels good cards are like garlic to me. I love garlic. Garlic is a solid spice. I'm happy that it exists on planet Earth. I love garlic bread. I could eat garlic bread or Texas toast just all day, every day, if it wasn't bad for my health to do so. But my wife puts garlic in everything. And garlic does not belong in scrambled eggs. I cannot eat my wife's scrambled eggs. My wife is a great cook, by the way.
I'm sorry that David is insulting the garlic usage of his wife. Mrs. Toombs, feel free to slap him over the head for this.
But I can't eat her scrambled eggs. And my son now likes garlic in his scrambled eggs too. So now I can't eat my son's scrambled eggs. Now if I want to make scrambled eggs, I gotta...
Are you stealing your son's scrambled eggs?
Make it myself. Because I can't be having garlic dumped in there. And then they dump way too much garlic. My wife puts garlic on everything. And that's the same with feels good cards. Casuals play feels good cards in everything because they just feel nice doing it. It gives them warm, cozy, happy feelings. And there's a time and a place for things like garlic bread. Like I'll play a City Rampage deck. Right now, I'm using some of these cards in my deck that I'd probably be playing for Louisville. I won't tell you which ones, but I'm playing a couple of the ones that I showed today. But they're actually really good for the situation.
So they're normally feels good. When you're playing them, they're feels good. When I play them, they're reals good. Okay, let's broaden this out a little bit. So first of all, what David is talking about here, he's not reinventing the wheel. This is a concept we have known for a long time. It's called win more cards, where you were already in an advantageous game state, and this card's not really doing much to do that. So when you win games because of this card, you were going to win those games anyways. That's not brand new. It's basically just saying we're not actually increasing our win percentage. It just is a flashier way when we do win. Fine, defensible thing to talk about. But he doesn't really do much to provide a distinction for when these cards are win more and when these cards are really good. If this is a thing for established viewers, established card game players like myself, we already know that there are cards that feel good that aren't actually good. And if it's for newer players, you're not giving them any sort of barometer to look at and evaluate these cards. In fact, it's really easy to draw the conclusion from this that you just shouldn't play these cards, period. That's what he put in his thesis statement. He has contradicted his thesis statement in his conclusion. His thesis statement and the title of the video, stop playing these cards. The conclusion is you can sometimes play these cards, but you need to be thinking about if it's good for the garlic or not. And it doesn't really fit with the rest of the video either, because most of this video posits that these cards are bad. It only portrays the bad. He does not explain for most of these cards the situations where they are useful. He did it for Porco and Jaw Titan's Bite. He did it at the very beginning with one of the cards. With City Rampage Amajiki because he did well with that one, or the Air Nick Reagan because his team did well with that one. But for the most part, when it comes to most of these, he's just been explaining bad, 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 bad. You can't keep just explaining why things are bad and then tell people, but you can play it sometimes when it's really good in those instances. You're giving them a conflicting message.
that I'm playing them in. And so don't treat this as saying like you should never, ever, ever play these cards. But a red flag should go up in your mind. When you see a feels good card matching one of these two categories, you should just ask yourself, is this really good in my deck? Or am I just instinctively playing this? And you need to have that be a deliberate thought process, because your brain, emotionally left to itself, is going to gravitate towards the feels good cards. And I might make another video after this one where I talk about reals good that are feels bad cards. Feels bad cards that are actually really good and win you games. That could be its whole own video, or I could go through examples of like cards that I consider real good and never ever feels good. But this is going to basically be it for me. I'll show you these three cards that I showed you at the beginning again. Nice Try, World's Weakest Hunter, Keiko's Aid. I won't tell you why they're feels good, but armed with the knowledge of this video, I think you can figure it out on your own. And
I don't think you could. Like, legitimately, I do not think you could. And if you think you can, then again, he's saying you can provide objective barometers that make these work or not. If you put up coordinated effort, runaway, and destined for mainstream success, and said, all right, using what we've done today, can you tell us which one of these are feels good? I think players would say every single one of them is feels good based on the arguments he has provided today, that they're conditional, that they already are forcing you to eat damage, that they sometimes don't change anything. These are things he's been arguing throughout his video. But if we know those cards are reals good, we know those cards were all competitively viable, have had not just topping lists, but near winning lists. If the barometers that he has provided today cannot help you draw conclusions like that, then what value were these arguments providing? Not to be too much of a hater, but his entire argument feels like he's heard people like these cards. He doesn't like these cards. So he's making a whole video creating a circular reasoning argument that these cards aren't actually good because I say they're not good, because they're only feels good. And they're not reals good unless I'm playing them in a specific deck, then they are reals good. And I think that that's just a poor argumentation style here. We lack warrants for most of these. He doesn't provide us examples of decks where they didn't work out for most of these. And he doesn't really spend time telling us, hey, these situational cards are useful when you play them specifically in this way. And these are what you should be examining when trying to figure out if it's appropriate to play these cards or not. And that's maybe the biggest crime of this video. If this is for newer players, newer people who don't understand the game as well, you should be giving them the way to evaluate these cards to decide if they're worth playing. And he's given us a bunch of ways that we can decide they're not worth playing. Conditionality, doesn't change anything, rival-based, fate-based. But he has failed to provide the ways that we can take cards that, as he said in his Discord, are feels good tinted and determine that they're actually reals good. And if you don't provide that for people, you're just misguiding them to play these cards incorrectly. And I think that that is kind of a shame with how this video is presented.
I hope that this video has been beneficial and helps you out in your deck building and playing and getting ready for Louisville in just a couple weeks, because I will be there. I'm ready to win the entire event, or just hang out with friends and have a good time. Both are good too, because it feels good. It feels good to be at the event surrounded by friends. So if you haven't done so already, leave this video a like, comment.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, yeah, I do not think this is a particularly well-presented argument. I think it is filled with logical fallacies, from hasty generalizations to circular reasoning to even appeal to authority when we quote the Apostle Paul. But beyond that, I think it is a misguided understanding of what we would mean when we say cards that aren't actually increasing our win rate versus cards that are increasing our win rate. I think if he approached this topic with more nuance, talking about where these cards are useful, where these cards aren't useful, and how to really think about these when you're playing the game, I think the deck or the video would have a lot more for newer players. Right now, I think it kind of fails at that. But that's all I wanted to say today. This video's been kind of bothering me, and I did it in one take because that's how David does it, but I think it's missing a lot in terms of argumentation. So have a good day. Subscribe to Brody Ron if you're not anyways, and I will see you later.